Now this video is specifically for group leaders because when you start a group, there are some specific pitfalls we want to avoid. Now I'll tell you in a minute, there's one thing that we can do that if we will do, we'll head off the majority of those pitfalls. But here are a few of the pitfalls you might run into. A talker dominates the conversation, talks too often or talks too long. Another in the group doesn't talk at all, maybe feels shut down or shut out, but just doesn't participate. Maybe emotion comes up. Either a person feels emotion and it comes out, perhaps sorrow or anger, maybe even despair, and the group doesn't quite know what to do. Or less frequently, but it has happened, emotions flare up between people in the group and the group doesn't know how to handle that. This one hardly ever happens, but it did once, so just want you to be prepared. A person talks about stuff that is way beyond the group's readiness to process. A bombastic reveal, something like, well, did you know that I'm a registered sex offender? So yeah, what to do if those kinds of things happen? So here's the first thing. Group leader, anytime you feel over your head, get help. Anytime you feel over your head, get help. You are making community happen. You are undertaking the core mission of Common Thread. So we will make time to support you because we need you to succeed. So call me, call one of the folks on the steering team. We know people, if we don't know how to handle it, we know people who are experienced in all kinds of things. So you are not alone. You have help, and the people who can help you have help. So we've got several layers that will stand with you. Now, I say that to prepare you for what might happen. But honestly, those kinds of things don't happen very often. I don't want to scare you off, but I also don't want you to be prepared. We will not throw you in to a place where you're not ready. And that thing that I just said might have felt like a bombastic reveal itself. What? Convicted sex offender? Oh my God, what would I do? So hang in with me because it is a very doable gig, group leading. So the first thing is, anytime you feel over your head, get help because we want to help. Here's the second thing. There's a very simple practice that has proven to eliminate most of the trouble spots for most groups. We do a relatively simple onboarding process at the beginning of each group. Now, if you're only planning 4 meetings, like a book club, for example, it might seem like a waste of time to spend half of the first meeting talking about how we're going to be in the group. But hang in there with me. I'm going to describe the full process, the kind of onboarding we would do if we knew that the group was going to go into very challenging territory. We would do this kind of onboarding if we were going to talk about race or political differences or core religious questions. But you can use the same process, just simplified considerably for even very short-term groups. Some kind of this process, some version of it, very valuable. Here's how it works the full way. And again, you can modify this to match your group. We would start, before we start with the group, by asking a question that people won't really be expecting. What do you want out of this group? In 3 sentences or less, what do you hope that this group will do? And then we go around the circle. We give everyone a chance. Now, it's often helpful if you appoint someone to write down what folks say they want out of this group. And just doing that thing, whether you use what's written down or not, it already has created a norm. In this norm, the non-talkers talked, and the dominating talkers finished in 3 sentences. It also creates a norm that we go around the circle and give everybody a turn because we want to hear from everybody. Now, most of the groups that I lead, I abandon the around the circle approach later, but doing it early on establishes we listen to everybody. So when that first question has gone around the circle, we ask another. What are we going to do about attendance? Shall we be a high commitment group, a medium commitment group, or a low commitment group? What is your commitment to attending? Now here's the thing, drop off in group attendance, it just happens. So especially if the group is going to be a high demand kind of group, let's decide if we're okay with drop off. Or let's decide if we want to build in a higher level of commitment. And then we would go around again. Maybe, how long is enough for each of us to speak? Or how shall we remind each other if one of us speaks too long? And then maybe another round. This question we have found surprisingly engaging. How do you want to be in this group? Maybe in another group you were one way, and maybe you want to be that way. Or maybe in this group you would like to be a different way. How do you want to be in this group? It really was an interesting question to ask. Now here's the thing, it's good if we do have someone write down the answers that people say, maybe even take it home as leaders and make a list for ourselves because later we might want to use that to keep the group on track. Not often, but we might want to say something like, now we said we want the group to be X. Now I notice that this was not X that just happened. What are we going to do about that? And if you've got that list, that gives you a sense of authority for that. One of the best non-coercive ways that a group leader can shift the direction of the group is to simply name what's happening in the group. Now, we hardly ever have to push an issue if we name it. Just naming what happened, it can feel scary for the leader, but it's actually a gift that we give to the group. What we do is we call the group back to our stated desired purpose. And maybe having this thing written down, a summary of that onboarding meeting, would be helpful. But even more than being helpful to use later as a tool for naming, the preliminary conversation, it gives the group an ownership stake in the group. By naming in advance what we want, by naming in advance how things could go sideways, they tend to not go sideways. We end up getting what we want out of the group. So each meeting, maybe you start with a one-sentence reminder. Well, welcome back. Quick reminder before we begin. For the most part, we want X out of this group. And we're working together to make sure we give that gift to one another. Okay, let's begin. Do that, and we give the group ownership of the group. Do that, and things go sideways much less frequently. But again, if they do go sideways, get help. We will help you help your group thrive. Finally, I've attached a note from Cindy Appleby in the class notes. Cindy is one of our experienced group leaders. I asked her to write some thoughts about what she does when she leads. And she focused on good listening and good question asking. It's only 200 words. I think you'll find it helpful. Go ahead and have a read of that.